Every quarter, the dashboard gets updated. Door to provider time, down 4 minutes. Patient satisfaction, up 3 points. LWBS, down 0.2%. The slides look good. The department is still boarding patients in the hall at 1800. The nurses are still stretched. The physicians are still managing a census they shouldn't be managing alone. The metrics improved. Patient flow didn't. Here's the structural reason why. Hello, I am Chet Shermer, and I have been practicing emergency medicine for 25 years. Metrics have always been a part of the game and not going away anytime soon. Let's learn more about them and the expectations of administration. Measurement systems are designed to make performance visible. That is their genuine value. A department without metrics is flying blind, making decisions based on anecdote, and unable to track whether interventions are working. But measurement systems carry a consistent failure mode. The metrics that are easiest to collect, quantify, and report are not necessarily the metrics that best represent the thing you're trying to measure. Door-to-provider time is easy to measure. It is a time-stamp comparison. Whether that first provider contact was clinically meaningful is much harder to quantify. So the dashboard shows what's measurable, and decisions get made based on the dashboard. This is not unique to emergency medicine. It is a feature of every metric-driven system. What gets measured gets managed. What gets managed is what can be measured. Everything else accumulates quietly. The first failure mode is metric selection bias. The metrics being tracked were chosen because they were available, not because they are the most important indicators of system performance. Most ED dashboards track what CMS requires and what Press Ganey surveys capture. These are legitimate data sources with real implications for reimbursement. They are not comprehensive assessments of department function. Metrics for nursing cognitive overload don't exist in most dashboard systems. Physician decision accuracy under census pressure isn't measured. The cascade from boarding to adverse event isn't tracked in a way that appears on the quarterly report. The selection bias means the dashboard shows you the department you can measure, not the department you're actually running. The second failure mode is Goodhart's law in practice. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Door-to-provider time drops when a provider pops into the waiting room for 30 seconds to meet every patient arriving. The metric improves. The clinical contact adds minimal value, but the dashboard looks good and the goal is met. Patient satisfaction scores improve when scripts are used, when discharge instructions are formulaic, when staff say the right words in the right order. Patients feel heard. Actual clinical outcomes may be unchanged. LWBS rate drops when waiting room monitors are installed that make the wait feel shorter. Patients wait the same amount of time and leave at the same rate, but the perception changes and the reported metric improves. None of this is dishonest. It is the rational response to being evaluated on a metric. The third failure mode is the conflation of correlation with causation in performance improvement analysis. Two metrics improve simultaneously. For example, door-to-provider time decreases and patient satisfaction increases in the same quarter. The inference is that the intervention that reduced door-to-provider time caused the satisfaction improvement. That inference may be wrong. Patient satisfaction in the same quarter may have improved because nursing staffing was higher, because the acuity mix shifted, because a high-profile complaint triggered a temporary behavioral change. Identifying which variable drove the outcome requires controlled analysis that most operational improvement projects do not perform. The result is a performance improvement library full of interventions that appear to have worked because two things moved in the same direction at the same time. Good measurement requires three components that are routinely absent from standard operational dashboards. First, clinical stratification. Length of stay metrics stratified by acuity level, diagnosis category, and complexity are more informative than aggregate LOS. A 4-hour average length of stay in a department that manages high acuity patients is meaningfully different from the same number in a low acuity fast track. Second, outcome linkage. Metrics should be connected to the clinical outcomes they're supposed to represent. Patient satisfaction without outcome tracking tells you whether patients like their experience. Outcome tracking tells you whether they were well served. Third, variance analysis. Averages obscure the high-risk tail. The 90th percentile LOS, the 90th percentile door-to-provider time, the worst day boarding count, these are where the system is actually failing, and they rarely appear on the dashboard. Three things. First, If you are responsible for metrics, as medical director, quality officer, or department chief, push for outcome linkage. Every process metric should have a corresponding outcome metric. If you can't define what patient outcome the process metric is supposed to represent, the process metric is probably not worth tracking. Second, present variance data alongside average data. The slide that shows average length of stay trending down is less useful than the slide that shows both average length of stay and 90th percentile length of stay, because the 90th percentile is where the boarding problem lives. Third, when a metric improves but operations don't change, say so. The discipline to report the metric moved but the underlying problem didn't is what makes a measurement system credible. This is Global MedOps Command, Clinical Brief Series. Better PowerPoints are not better care. Better measurement is the first step toward better operations, but only if the measurement captures what actually matters. Next brief, what I wish every emergency medicine resident understood earlier: stay prepared, stay educated, out.